Manuel Hassassian, many thanks for being here on WPC TV. You are the representative of the Palestine Liberation Organization in France.
In London.
In London, I
Yes.
beg your pardon. Even more important than in France, dare I say, as a Brit. I was intrigued by your remarks in the panel recently and by the remarks of the other participants. The two-state solution between, for a Palestinian state and an Israeli state. Is it still possible?
Well, actually, it is possible for the simple fact if we have an international community that has embraced the two-state solution with UN, resolutions, let alone that the United States has shouldered this peace process for almost 20 years, blessed by the European Union and accepted by the Palestinian leadership of the PLO, which accepted it back in 1991 as part of the Madrid peace process and the Oslo peace process. I think all the major stakeholders are for a two-state solution. But what is making it difficult is the fact that Israel still is not prepared to make peace and it's not ready to relinquish territories. Now, the building of settlements has been a prelude to abort the entire peace process, let alone the two-state solution. Today, when we went to the United Nations for recognition as a non-member status, we went there to salvage first the peace process because we want to re-engage in a peace process with the condition that settlements should stop. Because today, if you look at the West Bank and try to look at the geographic contiguity, there's no geographic contiguity because we have been clustered into three major cantons.
You don't have a link between the West Bank and Gaza.
That's number one. Number two, East Jerusalem is being totally severed from the West Bank. Number three, the West Bank itself is being carved by major clusters of settlements, one in the north, in the middle, and in the south. Now, if this settlement activity continues with almost now 750,000 settlers living there, go back retrospectively in history and try to see when Sharon pulled out from Gaza, there were only 8,000. And Gaza is insignificant. It's not part of the messianic dream of Eretz Israel. And they had difficulties in evacuating 7,000 to 8,000 settlers that were living, close to Gaza and inside Gaza. And Gaza was not even pertinent to their ideological dream of having it, as part of Eretz Israel. Now, can you imagine the Judea Samaria, as they call the West Bank, to withdraw and to dismantle settlements of this magnitude?
Do you blame successive Israeli governments for this, or Benjamin Netanyahu?
No, the idea of settlement actually started with labor. It did not start with Likud. Likud came at a later stage in 1977 when Likud came in power after 20 years of labor move. The settlement activities started to increase more and more. And the reason why settlements are being built, not only on ideological basis, but for political expediency. For the simple fact, there is not a major political party in Israel that could win the election. So they have always been, hijacked by small party coalitions through which they have to make certain kinds of concessions to these parties. And the recent elections 2 years ago with Benjamin Netanyahu is that he had to accept Israel Beituna and to accept the religious Orthodox factions to form this coalition government. So he came on an agenda called settlement agenda. The moment he stops settlement building, then this coalition will break. And Mr. Netanyahu, he loves to be the prime minister of Israel. So he had to cater for the needs of all these small factions and stay in government.
You use the word hijack for the political system in Israel, but in a sense, do you think that the Palestinians have been hijacked by Hamas? Now, I say that because obviously Abu Mazen and the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, is willing to make peace. There's always a question mark in the Israeli mind over whether Hamas is willing to make peace.
Yeah.
And as long as you have this divergence between Hamas and the Fatah, there will presumably be a problem.
Let me start by making one remark. There is a consensus among all Palestinians that occupation has to end. Yeah. The question of the form of a state in the future is being tied to the democracy that we have as a pluralist society through a vibrant civil society have practiced even under Israeli occupation. The question of Hamas should be put aside. This is an internal problem between Fatah, Hamas, the authority, and Hamas. This is something that we can absolve in the process of elections. As soon as we have this reconciliation, we're going to have presidential, legislative elections, and PLO elections if Hamas is willing to be part of the PLO. But let me remind you, sir, that when we had embarked on the peace process, Hamas was not. a signatory to that peace process. Hamas was not even a faction that has been as visible as it is today and the power to reckon with. Hamas, the PLO has initiated and accepted the two-state solution. It was the PLO that has been negotiating with the state of Israel. So why do you want did the Orthodox Jews, had a stake then, were part? Yeah. They're not, they're against, an independent Palestinian state. Yeah. But yet, Rabin went ahead with the Oslo peace process, went ahead with the idea of a two-state solution. So by the same token, I think we should ask the right question. Is Israel ready to make peace? We have a president who is ready and made all the concessions to re-engage back in the political process with one condition, that he wants to salvage the two-state solution by stopping settlements. Now, Hamas has its own agenda, but eventually, once we have our reconciliation, so it has to be one political platform. A national unity government, by de facto, makes Hamas accept the state of Israel in any future negotiations.
And that is going to happen, is it?
It is going to happen because I think it's inevitable that we could continue to be divided. And the recent onslaught with the naked aggression of Israel against, Gaza, I think that has been a catalyst in making, in facilitating the rapprochement between Fatah and Hamas, the authority and Hamas.
Two final questions. On the panel just now, the idea of the Saudi initiative for the whole Arab world making peace on the basis of the 67 borders with some adjustments, and then total recognition by the Arab countries of Israel. I presume that the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, would support this.
Yes. Let me tell you this.
Why has it never gotten off the ground?
For several reasons. First of all, we have endorsed, we have accepted, and we have campaigning the Arab Peace Initiative. As a matter of fact, President Mahmoud Abbas had instructed us, ambassadors, to promote the Arab Peace Initiatives in our host countries. And we had big articles, let alone the whole document was published in The Guardian and in other major newspapers. Also, we have been advocating that inside Israel, the Arab Peace Initiative. President Abbas has always consulted with the Arabs on all pertinent issues that it comes to the final status talks. And when it comes to negotiations, we have been supported by our Arab brothers. And let alone that the Arab Peace Initiative, as I mentioned in my deliberation, that it is an actual ingredient for making end of claims and finalizing the conflict with the state of Israel. When you see 59 Islamic and Arab countries are willing to offer peace for the sake of relinquishing 22% of Palestine, the 1967 borders, and accepting the idea of a feasible solution to the question of refugees and their right of return, I think Israel is missing a golden opportunity in making peace and in being a full-fledged nation state rather than a Pyrrhic state, rather than a pariah state in the Middle East.
But my final question, can any of this happen without the involvement of America? You made the point that Israel is really a domestic political issue in America.
Yes.
And one can say it's for a few seats in various congressional districts. Now you have a second-term American president, President Obama. What hopes do you have?
Well, actually, in a second term, I think the president could use his 20% of his executive power. You know that the United States of America, the president does not have more than 20% of his executive. 80% is controlled basically by Congress, that are controlled by multinational corporations, by lobbyists, AIPAC, and the Rifle Association, blah, 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 blah. All these people, are the ones who are making the decisions. However, if President Obama, from January, he believes that security and peace in the Middle East is tied organically to the solving of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict through conflict resolution rather than crisis management. I think that priority put by President Obama will shake things up in Israel, let alone that President Obama is not fond of Netanyahu. Okay, that's second. Number three, I believe that the European Union should play a more proactive role. I think we always have betted on the wrong horse with the Americans because they unequivocally support Israel. We thought that there are 27 European countries with their bilateral relations. We have a lot of friends in Europe who could really be initiated more proactively in the political process. Now, Europe has been, of great help to us in terms of economic infrastructure development, development, financial aid, and what have you. But we need the political teeth, and that political teeth which could create an equilibrium in the peace process with that of the United States as a third party, I think then we are in the right direction.
Well, let's hope for the best on this, because it's been a perennial problem.
Yes.
Manuel Hassassian, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome, sir. It's my pleasure.